Chiefs came into Buffalo and beat the Bills 27-24 after the Bills kicker missed a game-tying field goal attempt at the very end of the game. But it was ultimately a good game. Both offenses really ran the ball, which was kind of surprising. Like, they ran very well. What were
Yeah.
your thoughts on this game?
Allen played like Superman today. He was their main engine of offense. 186 yards, 1 touchdown on the air, 12 carries, 72 yards, and 2 scores on the ground. He really carried everything for them. And Mahomes, you know, he didn't play bad at all, but I'm not used to Mahomes only throwing the ball 23 times, right? 215, 2 touchdowns, didn't make a mistake, but honestly, he didn't have to do much, which I was so surprised by, because all season, the gripe about this Kansas City team was they don't have the playmakers. Well, Isaiah Pacheco had himself the game. 15 carries, 97 yards, a touchdown. I think he was the differentiator in this game, whether it's on the ground or out of the backfield. I know Kelsey scored twice through the air, but Pacheco, young star in that backfield, and they didn't have him the first time these teams squared up. And he is going to be the determining factor of whether or not they can ultimately beat Baltimore. I know we'll get to that later. But my major takeaway and my question for you from this game was Stefon Diggs. Where was he? Where has he been? He just seemed disinterested. 3 receptions on 8 targets for 21 yards. He was non-existent in this game. And honestly, ever since he had that pouting fest when they went on their losing streak, he's kind of disappeared, bro.
You bring up a great point, because I know the Bills kicker just absolutely choked that last field goal. He should have made that. Should have been that. I think that was worse than the Packers one, honestly. But here we are. But even Stefon Diggs, Josh Allen threw an absolute bomb in that game.
Yep.
And Stefon Diggs had a chance to catch that ball. They probably would have scored a touchdown on that possession, and he just whiffed on the catch. He didn't get it at all. And not to mention, on the first play of the game, he fumbled the ball, and Dalton Kincaid had to save him by knocking it out, so Kansas City couldn't get it on their side of the field. That's a big issue I have with some of the guys like Stefon Diggs and AJ Brown, is why are you being so pouty, dude? Like, they feel like if they're not getting the ball a certain amount of times or whatever it is, everyone has the right, I believe in pro sports especially, to, get mad about something here and there, right? Stuff happens, right? They're smart, they're good. They have an understanding of what they can do, right? Like, people are going to get mad sometimes. Makes sense. But even in going back to his Minnesota days, he just it gets pouty and upset at these good QBs who give him the ball more than anyone else on the team. And his brother hopped on Twitter, after one of their losses, I think maybe to Denver earlier this year on their losing streak, like you said, and was like, "Get that man out of here. We don't want him in Buffalo anymore." And at this point, it's just, what more does Stefon Diggs want? Like, is he really not much of a team player as a wide receiver? Like, I think it's kind of hard to be selfish as a wideout, but it kind of feels like, he had that attitude this year. He's had that attitude in the past. And, I think, like you said, he just didn't really show up the second half of the year. Maybe he was being a little pouty, but, that's not something you like to see from a guy that's so talented like that, who really needed in this game. Because like you said, Josh Allen was most of their offense. Cook was decent today, but like, you need a guy like Diggs to step up in these moments, and he had key mistakes, the fumble, the big drop pass. Like, it's just not a good look for him.
The worst part is he just seemed disinterested. You could tell by his body language and the vibe that he was kind of just sending off while we were watching that game. It's like, I care less. That's the kind of the feel I got from him. Whereas in the past, when these two teams met up, Diggs was devastated, right, when they lost. I think, honestly, my big question is, should Buffalo move on from him?
Mm.
Should they shop Diggs in the offseason?
You know,
It's almost
I
gotten to that point for me.
I think it depends, honestly, if you can get another big time wide receiver back, because I know you have Cook, who's emerging second year player. He was really good at the running back spot. You have Dalton Kincaid, who was rookie, a good tight end, emerging at that spot. But what other wide receivers do they really have outside of Diggs? Because Gabe Davis, I think, is really overrated. He's not that great, to be honest. He doesn't do
No.
much. He shows up occasionally on deep passes, but he's not consistent. Shakir's a good consistent guy for them, but he's kind of like a slot guy, and you need more than just that. They just don't really have any other wide receivers in that room for me to feel good about moving on from someone like that, unless you can get another star wide receiver or wide receiver depth at that position. Um, I don't know. Were you thinking about moving on from Stefon Diggs if you're the Bills?
Depends on what the market is. If you can get a number one, if you could get a first round pick from the right team, I'd say so. I mean, because this upcoming draft class is stacked at the wide receiver position. And he's set to make basically $20 million a year for the next 3 years. So he is a big cap hit as well, where that money could be spent elsewhere, whether it's another wide receiver or revamping that defense, you know. But at the end of the day, I just don't like his attitude if I'm Buffalo. This whole season, after week 5, he just seemed to be checked out. I don't know what it is with the receivers. Devontae Adams over here pouting, A.J. Brown pouting, Jamar Chase saying, I'm always fucking open. You know what I mean? So
Oh yeah,
wide receivers are divas.
they
And
can be. Yeah.
if you're complaining about having probably the second best quarterback in football on your team, you know what I mean?
What else do you want?
I mean, come on, bro. I I was severely disappointed with Diggs in this game. He was a no-show. He didn't seem to care at all. And if you have a player like that on your team and he's supposed to be your best playmaker outside of Josh Allen, but you know what I mean, the wide receiver one, what kind of precedent does that set for the rest of the team?
Yeah, I mean it's very poor leadership, and he's been known. Like I said, he's had these like good years and good seasons of great leadership and competitiveness. But then he's also had these years where he is just kind of like a diva, as you mentioned. And I mean, for the Bills, because they got off to that slow start, then they caught fire, came up short again against the Chiefs. If they're not going to move on from Bills or from Diggs, because that could be kind of difficult this year for them. Um, what's next for the Bills? What else can they do? Do they need to make coaching changes? I mean, they were better after they got their new offensive coordinator. Like he's just an interim. I mean, maybe they keep him around. Is there any other roster moves they can make to improve this team?
I really don't know. I don't have the answer if I'm Buffalo, because this game you felt like you had the chance there. They converted on 4th and 3. They got within field goal range. Okay, we're going to kick a field goal. It's probably going to go into overtime, and then we'll see what happens from there. But they just can't get over this hump. But at the end of the day, though, I mean, Kansas City, Travis Kelce's not getting any older or not getting any younger. You know, Andy Reid's getting up there in age. So I don't know, man. This Kansas City team's got their number, and I have no idea what they need to do specifically, because in every time they play, it comes down to the final possession. It comes down to 1 or 2 plays, right? And both sides kind of made mistakes. The missed field goal by Bass, the gimme. How
Mm-hmm.
gross was that? So far right. But Nicole Hardman fumbled the ball on the 1 yard line, and the game would have been
Yeah.
over if he got in there. And
After
then
the Bills went
after the
for it
Bills
on
went for it
fourth and
on
down.
4th and 5 from their own 30, right? So there
Yeah.
were mistakes made on both sides. But at the end of the day, this is just another tough loss for Buffalo, and I really don't know what they need to do to beat Kansas City in a playoff game.